Welcome to 79's 42nd reunion, and the first time we're actually doing something really reunion-like where we can see you all on Zoom after a bunch of webinars. I am getting an echo. Sorry about that. So let's, this is going to be actually a bit more of an intimate setting than I think what we had anticipated from the registrations, but it's great to see all of you. And we are so happy that Lauren and Terry are taking the time to be with us and share their creative work tonight. One of the greatest things for all of us as officers in putting on the Authors and Artists series and the webinars and Zooms that we've done is getting to know so many more classmates better than we had and hearing what people have been up to. So we look forward to hearing from all of you, and particularly first, actually hearing what Terry and Lauren have been up to. The order of business or order of pleasure for tonight, I should say, is that until Terry and Lauren's presentations are done, I'm going to suggest that you all put yourselves on mute, and then once we start going speaker views so that you can actually see the videos of these performances really well. And what we're going to do is turn to Lauren first. And she is going to share 3 songs from her new musical. She'll tell you more about each of those songs in succession. And then Terry is going to share a world premiere of a song from his new album, which we're really excited about both of those things. After we watch those performances, you'll get the chance to ask questions live as well as then to chat with each other. You can use the hand raise feature or just raise your real hands to get attention. And I will try as best as I can to moderate this. Chat will also be active, so feel free to use that. And during the actual performances, I think as our host, Phil will mute everybody. But now I'd like to just turn it over to our president, Phil Huber, for a welcome.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to our 42nd reunion. Goes without saying, thank God it's not a major reunion. I really feel for those classes. I'm actually in Princeton. It's amazing how bustling downtown Princeton was today, just packed to the gills. But of course, the campus is, it's sad. But it's still beautiful. So anyways, a couple things to show. I've got this shirt here, class of 79 shirt. You can get those custom made by the U store, by the way. So it's not one of our reunion costumes. Probably recognize this hat, 25th reunion hat, got that. By the way, I'm sitting here Zooming in my room at the Nassau Club. We had a lot of technical hiccups today, but we got that fixed. Oh, and if you recognize this, this is my treat today from Hoagie Haven. It was fun to walk down there. That place has changed unbelievable. It's all done with a touch screen now. You're not standing in line, but the sandwich is still the same. So anyways, I just wanted to welcome everybody and enjoy these wonderful videos from Lauren and Terry, and also kudos to Catherine and Marguerite, who did just a superb job in organizing the 3 webinars for this weekend. And I'll just close by, for any of you who live relatively close and you're kind of nutty like me, a few of us are gathering at 2 o'clock behind Nassau Hall to watch the V-Raid on our phones together. And then we're going to march our banner down the P-Raid route. Rumor has it that there's going to be a bunch of other classes doing the same thing. I wisely did not ask permission for this. Don't tell anybody, Marguerite, but I knew that permission would probably not be granted. So we're gonna march on our own. But anyways, enjoy the Zoom, and we'll speak with you all later.
Thank you, Phil. And so now I'd like to introduce Lauren and just tell you a little bit about what she's been up to. Lauren is now a lyricist librettist who splits her time between Chicago and New York. And her writing credits include, and there are numbers, I'm going to read this, Regretting Almost Everything, which was commissioned by William Finn at the Barrington Stage and Feinstein's 54 Below. Join the Club for the Evanston Arts Center and the Skokie Theater. After They've Gone for Porchlight Music Theater and NYTB at the Cell. You Gave Me a Sheep for the National Asians Artist Project. A Statue of Stature for the Prospect Theater Company, and In My Book, which was a commission and the Coastal Carolina University. So her musicals in development include Mimosa, which was the winner of the NAMT 15-minute new musical competition, and which she's going to share some songs from with us. And Bok Chang, which was commissioned by the Fifth Avenue Theater in Seattle, and then also For the Birds. So Lauren's been really busy. She's the 2020 Robert and Stephanie Olmsted McDowell Fellow and has also been in residence at the Fifth Avenue Theater for the Johnny Mercer Grove at Goodspeed and the Catwalk Institute. And her work's been performed at Joe's Pub, Lincoln Center, Barrington Stage, Carnegie Hall, virtually there, and other venues in New York and Chicago. Lauren's got an MFA from NYU Tisch and a JD from Harvard, as well as her BS from Princeton. And she was recently a teaching artist at Michigan State and also assisted William Finn in master classes in lyric writing. She's a member of the Dramatists Guild, Maestra, the Women, Trans GNC Roundtable at the Musical Film Theater Factory, and a founding member of Homebrewed Collective. And personally, Lauren has a longtime partner, a mom, 3 adult children, 2 grandkids, and a dog. And as a recovering lawyer, I find this really interesting. In her past life, she was an in-house counsel at the Mount Sinai Hospital and Medical School in New York City. She spent years writing comedic sketches for social service-based community theater. And recently, she says she started talking to trees. We can ask her about that later. Most importantly, she wakes up every morning grateful to be doing what she's doing and honored that her writing partners continue to choose to write with her. And so Lauren, over to you. We can't wait to see your work.
Say it sounds so much more impressive than it actually is. I'll tell you about Mimosa because I mean, I've written a lot of shows, but this one is actually, I think, special. The original inspiration for the show is that I was with my main collaborator in Times Square before the pandemic in the middle of the summer, and it was Times Square, you know, just like total sensory assault. And I just said to him, I just wish we could walk into a theater and when the doors closed behind us, feel like we had been transported into the woods. I want to hear it, smell it, feel it under my feet. And he was like, oh yeah, great. What's the show? And I'm like, I have no idea. And then a number of months later, one of my kids sent me Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind, you know, about psilocybin. And that somehow primed me to notice an article in the Times about this woman named Monica Gagliano, and it was called The Plant Whisperer. And it was about how plants are sentient, intelligent, communicating beings, which was a new idea to me. And it was sort of the beginning of a journey that resulted in me coming to believe that, largely influenced by a book she wrote called Thus Spoke the Plant, which alternated between her spiritual encounters with plants and then the experiments she did in her laboratories that proved plant intelligence, memory, communication, sentience, all of those things. And so I told my writing partner, and I said, I think we need to write about plants being sentient, intelligent, communicating beings, because this is all news to me. And he's like, great, what's the show? And I'm like, I don't know. there was a book in 73 called The Secret Life of Plants. And the last paragraph of the introduction, to paraphrase, said something like, and so it appears that plants are ready, willing, and able to work with, to undertake with humans the Herculean task of replanting the garden. And I thought, that sounds like a musical, a story about plants being ready for humans to work with them to replant the garden. And we still didn't really know what the story was, but then at some point, a couple months later, it finally crossed my mind to ask, oh my God, what if the protagonist was a plant? Because, I mean, our characters are always human. And as soon as I asked that question, it was like I was ready and it fell into place. So anyway, we wound up, Mimosa is the protagonist. She is a Mimosa pudica plant. And Mimosa pudica plants are special because if you touch one or shake one, it plays dead. It literally folds up its leaves and collapses. And then when the threat has passed, it stands up again. And because of that property, they've been used in all of these experiments to show plant learning and intelligence. And also over the years, they've been given all of these names that imbue them with personality: the clown plant, the shy plant, the wanton plant, the disobedient plant, and the list sort of went on, but it made her come alive for me. And so this story is about Mimosa, who is a plant with this gift, but her extra special gift is she can dance. So she can actually move every which way, limited only by the fact that she's rooted in the ground. But whenever she does that, her mother says, Mimosa, stop. It's dangerous. First of all, you need to save your energy, but more importantly, what if a human sees you? Every sensible plant knows you can't trust a human. So the first song we're going to hear is Mimosa's first song, because Bruce is going to try to share the video.
Absolutely.
Gotta move, gotta play, gotta melt and plunge and bend and swoop and sway. Gotta move, gotta glide, gotta fold and fall and stretch and open wide. Staying still is boring. Where is the surprise to light my eyes with wow and wonder? Wilt, revive, wilt, revive. Need the whoosh and whirl and reel to feel alive. Got a gift I can't hide. Got a pulse that bubbles up from deep inside. Wanna tease, wanna flirt. Life's a snooze when you are rooted in the dirt. Taking charge is awesome. Breaking rules is great. Getting high by trying and defying expectations. Reach, contract, reach, contract. If the blessed with special skills that others lack. Mimosa, stop! Why? It's a gift.
flaw, it's a curse. Cut it out or things will go from bad to worse. Save your strength, stay alert.
Life's a snooze when you are rooted in the dirt. Staying still is boring.
Stop!
Playing
Stay
dead is
still,
dull.
Mimosa.
Where is the surprise to light
No,
my eyes with wow and wonder?
Mimosa.
Wilt, revive.
Don't draw attention to yourself,
Revive.
or you'll wind up on the shelf.
Need to twist and wave and crush. Need to turn and slide and brush. Need to lean and swoop and fall and dive. Need to bend and scoop and reach and strive. Need the whoosh and whirl and reel to feel alive.
So I have no idea why that wasn't synced up because I understand nothing about video or how this works. But the woman performing, her name's Shireen Pimentel, she was Maria on the recent revival of West Side Story that just got shut down. I don't know why she was wearing what she was wearing. Anyway, so Mimosa sings that song and she finishes her dance and no sooner does she finish, but 14-year-old motherless, lonely human Molly enters and catches a glimpse of Mimosa dancing. And ultimately, Mimosa reveals to Molly that she can hear her, see her, and understand her. And Molly is so delighted by Mimosa that she digs her up and takes her home. I'm going to summarize. They wind up being best friends, and because of Mimosa's friendship, Molly stops being the weird outsider that she had been. And she's never been happier. There's just one problem with her relationship with Mimosa. So I guess this is the next demo, which is called If You Can Talk, If You Could Talk.
I don't know what would have happened if we hadn't met last week. Not true, I know that I'd still be an outcast and a freak. Were you not here to lend a stem, I'd have to cut and run. But with you, my bud and bud, my life is getting almost to fun. But oh, if only you could talk. If you could talk, we would ramble on for hours. We would talk and talk until the morning light. Then hush-hushedly, I tell you and you tell me all about the dreams that we dreamed last night. If you could talk, you could tell me what you're thinking. And I wouldn't have to guess at what you'd say. Wouldn't it be nice to give and get advice like normal best friends do every day? You tend me with your tendrils and know when to take the lead, as if some god or oracle arranged for what I'd need. It's not rainbows and unicorns, but in this Elsinore, I want to be, not to be, that's better than before. That's a Shakespeare reference. Hamlet. If you could talk, we could tell each other stories. You could tell me what it's like to live outside. You must be relieved. Was it great to be retrieved? When it stormed, you must have been terrified. If you could talk, I could take a turn to listen. Maybe pick up some botanic dialect. There's no way to fake the authentic give and take that a plant and human need to connect. You think and see and hear without a brain or eye or ear. If you can breathe without a lung, why can't you talk without a tongue? If you could talk, you might tell me you're unhappy, that this friendship just exists inside my head. There's no way that's true. What I feel, you must feel too. In true friendship, there are things left unsaid. If you could talk, we'd be BFFs forever. You and me, how splendid that would be. There must be a way to hear the things you say, because Mimosa, I wish that you could talk. Good night, Mimosa.
That's a woman named Belin Moyano, who is fantastic, and I use whenever I can. And so the last song is sort of the theme song of the show. It's called Can't Do It Alone. It's early in the show, the way Mimosa and Molly bond is Molly, who is supposed to be a klutz, is charged with making up a dance and teaching the whole town, and she can't dance. And Mimosa winds up teaching her to dance. And Molly chooses a pop song that's on the radio at the time called Can't Do It Alone. And you know, in the show, at the beginning when we hear it, it has to sort of function like a pop song. But by the end of the show, it has to function like a musical theater song, like a character song. And actually, because Danny and I rarely, my collaborator and I rarely write pop songs, you know, we wrote this first chorus song that we were not at all proud of. And then we had this presentation, and the guy who was running it wanted us to do that song, which forced us, mostly Danny, to figure out how to make it more interesting. So we wound up cutting a chorus and adding a section, and it's definitely better than it was. Anyway, so this is performed by, again, Shireen, who we saw do Gotta Move, and then a woman named Diana Huey. And Diana played Ariel, or does play Ariel, in Disney's national tour. So here's our fixed version of Can't Do It Alone.
Can't feel the heat. The music's playing, I can't feel the beat. Forgive me, babe, for doing all the taking. I didn't see the mess that I was making. Now I see the way it has to be. Do it alone. The gold may glitter, but the path is dark. hit the bullseye, but I missed the mark. I was so sure, but baby, I was clueless. I felt secure, but now I'm lost and rootless. Babe, it's true, I'm nothing without you. I need you, you need me. There is nothing we can't do together, like a leaf and a tree. We can't make it on our own. We can't do it alone. 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 Why do we always get it wrong? We've had the answer all along. It's only love that makes us strong. My eyes are open and my heart is too. Oh, babe, I'm coming back to you. Holding together is the way we'll flourish. I promise from now on to tend and nourish. That's the way to a better day. To a better day. I need you, you need me. Babe, there's nothing we can't do together. I breathe you, you breathe me. We can't make it on our own. We can't do it alone. 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 We can't do it alone.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. So those are the songs, and that's it. And now it's Terry's turn. And Terry, my collaborator, is a percussionist. He's a drummer.
Well, Lauren, thank
All
you.
right. That's a great thing, I think.
I think it's great. I love working with a percussionist. It's so much fun.
There's a lot of rhythm going on there.
Now,
Primal.
my feet were tapping. So, Terry, let me introduce you for those who haven't followed your incredible career over the past 40 years.
Wow.
Terry actually began recording and performing at age 14 as a pioneering fusion drummer alongside his brother Barry Miles, who was Princeton class of '69. So he was quite accomplished before he even met all of us 42 years ago, or 46 years ago, I guess, really. And since then, Terry's performed worldwide. He's recorded on hundreds of albums, gold, platinum, you name it, for a wide variety of artists. Some of the names that are familiar: Billy Ocean, Roberta Flack, George Benson, Natalie Merchant, Stephen Stills, Freddie Jackson, Stephanie Mills, Tom Jones, Laura Nero, Anne Murray, and there are more. He has recorded with film soundtracks, including One Fine Day, You've Got Mail, Object of My Affection, Titus, Rita, Slaves of New York, What Planet Are You From, and many jingles and TV shows. So all of us, we have been listening to Terry for over 40 years and not even probably knowing it sometimes. He's released 12 solo artist albums, showcasing his drumming, compositions, and producing within jazz, pop, and film idioms. He's authored a drum instruction book called The Featured Drummer, co-authored the Stick Bag Book of Jazz Funk Fusion, the Gig Bag Book series for drummers. Terry, you name these so that they twist off the tongue.
I can't say them either.
A new conception with Morris Arnie Lang, the principal percussionist of the New York Philharmonic for 40 years. And he's got a drum instruction video, Even Grooves, Swing Grooves. So anybody who wants to learn to drum, Terry's your man. He's written and produced and arranged hundreds of pieces for network TV shows, including The Sopranos, Smash, Young and the Restless, CSI, NCS, and feature films, including Greenland with Gerald Butler and Hope Davis, Mad About Mambo with Kerry Russell, Invincible with Mark Wahlberg, and others, and numerous jingles, including Reebok, Nicorette, Pantene, Gain Detergent, Crisco Canola, and I can go on. And Terry we're so happy to have him joining us tonight to share one of the songs from his new album. And it is a clever play on words. The title of this new music video album called In My Own Silver Light, which, Terry, I assume that there's some additional meaning and thought behind that maybe you'd like to share with us as you introduce your song.
Sure. Well, first, I just want to say it's such an honor and privilege to be here, and thanks for sharing a little bit of your time with me. I have a little bit of an explanation about the video that's going to be played, prepared, but before I start with that, I just want to say, Lauren, your videos are amazing, and I can't wait to see the full musical production, the performance. It's just, congratulations.
That's very kind of you.
Really wonderful. And I'm going to say two things about it that are impromptu before I say my little prepared bit here. That one of the tracks on my new album is called Wildlife, which is a double meaning about my being a little bit, wild sometimes, but also my appreciation for wildlife. But in addition to that, I had played on an album for the great Laura Nyro actually it took 2.5 years from between 1980 to 1983. And a few of the songs focus on her love and appreciation for wildlife, and in particular trees. She would have loved to, she passed away, she would have loved to have seen your videos and your musical. There were, from memory, there was a song on the album called In a Wilderness, another one called Talk to a Green Tree. And Todd Rundgren produced a few of the songs on the album. Coincidentally, her house that she lived in, that we recorded the album in, is about 5 minutes from my house that I'm living in now, which is kind of like mind-blowing. But anyway, Todd Rundgren came to the house to produce a few of the songs, and he just was trying to dissuade her from making a record like that about trees and wildlife and nature. And she was like, I don't care what you say, this is what I'm going to do. And I actually overheard a conversation with her and an A&R person at Columbia, her record company at the time, saying, I don't care if this is a hit, I just want to write what I want to write, and I love trees. And actually my audition with her had nothing to do with music whatsoever. I met her at her house. I was living in Manhattan at the time, and she walked me around her property where there were a lot of trees, and to get the vibe, whether I would be able to fit in with her thing. So it was just a great experience. Anyway, it's wonderful what you did. So now back to my what my new album is about. What you're about to see is the opening track from my new music video album, In My Own Silver Light. Two separate words. My last name is one word, Silverlight, but this album's title is 2 words, Silverlight. I'm still working on the album, and it hasn't been released yet, so this is the premiere performance that I'm thrilled to share with my Princeton class of '79 family. It was challenging and rewarding putting together my take on the various musical styles, directions, and dynamics that interest me into one album. Additionally, through the language of music, I wanted to maintain a focus on my vision of hope, love, positive energy, bright light, silver lining, a better world, but in my own way, in my own silver light. There's another thing about this album that's special for me, is that I've made several solo artist albums featuring myself in various musical settings and styles, including ensembles, duets, songwriter collaborations, and those which I'm the sole writer and performer with guest instrumentalists and vocalists. But this album is just me doing all the writing, producing, arranging, instruments, vocals, recording, and filming. Now, actually, I had the idea of and started working on this self-made solo album before COVID-19 pandemic hit, when artists creating music by themselves became more commonplace. In fact, I've enjoyed making music on my own since I was a kid. And even before I was pursuing my freelance drumming career from an early age, I was honing and recording my writing skills. In addition to the many artists I've contributed my efforts to in a variety of styles and settings with some of the world's most outstanding musicians, it's been great creating music solely on my own. All of it inspires me to present my song, The Silverlight, from my new music video album, In My Own Silverlight, and I hope you enjoy it. The silver light. 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 The silver Thanks for checking it out.
Terry, that was great.
Oh, thank you for playing it.
Terry and Lauren, both of you, I'm awed to be in the presence of so much creativity. My foot was tapping and I was smiling the whole time.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sure that I'm sure that others on the call here with us, and I urge you now, if you have been watching as I have in speaker view, to switch to gallery view so that we can all be together, see each other, and oh, what did I do?
You're fine, Catherine.
I don't see anything anymore.
Huh.
Sorry, okay, sorry.
We see you.
I'm going to attempt to switch to gallery view again. Yes, now, so I can see everybody. Who has questions for Lauren and or Terry? And while you're thinking of that, of them, one thing that I wanted to ask is, I think it's so amazing that you all have come up with this, with these works as we've gone through, COVID and all of its associated travails. What was it like trying to work in a studio, or where were you? What was it like trying to put together these wonderful creative pieces while struggling with COVID?
Lauren?
Lauren, you're on mute. Okay, great.
I was on mute. Okay, and then Terry. I was actually with Tony Award winner William Finn, and he was asked, he was being interviewed last night, and he said, for the old people, it's not such a big deal. And especially for writers, what I do is kind of solitary anyway. And unfortunately, it's not like my show is about to open on Broadway and all of my dreams went up in smoke or my plans were canceled. So, and I had just started on the path of writing Mimosa before COVID happened. And my habit is, I wake up and I write. And then over the summer, my daughter and grandchildren lived with me. I don't know. So, like the whole world was suffering and I was sitting at home writing this really fun show and having a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old run around my house. And so it was just sort of pure joy for me. I was really, really lucky with that timing. And I mean, a lot of writers sort of in my little world talk about how COVID actually freed people up to make connections that we wouldn't have otherwise. I mean, like if there was something happening on Zoom, people were free to participate. And yes, it was not like being together, but I just sort of took every opportunity to be in community in any way I could with any group of writers or people that were making theater. And so, again, not ideal, but for a relatively old person who's a writer, and since I did not isolate from family or grandchildren, I was okay. I was okay. And I had Mimosa. For people that, like, if I had to start something, I think it would have been tough to think about what I wanted to write. Because things, as we all know, were kind of dark for lots of reasons.
Well, I wish I could add a lot to that, but that's basically what I would have said, because my experience was and is very, very similar to what you just described, in that as I mentioned, I had begun my album project quite a bit before the pandemic began. And the pandemic, I don't want to lessen its horrible impact, because I'm aware of like how horrible it was and still is, and hopefully it won't go on for much longer. And a lot of my colleagues did not make it. I was very careful, so I, was safe, the operative word. So the time that I had free for me, like you said, was like a blessing, because it really gave. I would have done it anyway, no matter what, but this really gave me more time and more opportunity to focus on the album on a daily, all-day basis. That's not to say that I didn't do other things, because I knew that I wasn't going to be performing on drums live a lot. So I practiced a lot, and I got to things that I wouldn't have gotten to otherwise, that I've been waiting to do for a while. And I even wrote a little blurb in this book. See how prepared I am? It's called Practicing Music, How the Professionals Do It. So all I have to do now is read the book and get something out of it, and I'll be okay. But, and I also collaborated on some compositions with new songwriters and pre-existing songwriters. And I'm also able to record drums in my home studio, and oftentimes I'm asked to overdub drum parts to pre-existing tracks that these people have. So I did some of that. And creatively, it was really, I hate to say it was really a good thing for me.
I mean, my collaborator was so much more available. We never would have finished the first draft, because he would have been running all over Manhattan, like with his drum kit, right? Trying to make $75 here and $100 there.
That much?
To make a living. But I mean, all of the composers I work with had no work,
Right.
And no gigs. So they were available to write.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey,
Some
Lauren,
of I'm sorry, go ahead, Phil.
look, it's funny that you were, when you were talking about the plant that moved, or the plant that acts dead.
Yeah.
My Amtrak ride today, I was able to get through about half of Walter Isaacson's new book called Codebreaker, and it's about Jennifer Dauda, who was one of the leading people with the whole DNA RNA breakthroughs with I don't know, genetic splicing. I butcher the science, but just forgive me. But anyways, she her fascination with biology began as a child in Hawaii with a plant that did a similar thing, and it was that plant reaction to touch that led her to really get into biology. She ended up winning a Nobel Prize, actually.
Yeah, I think it's in the air, or I mean, if I have an idea, clearly 1,000 other people are having it or thinking the same thing too. But not that many people are writing musicals with a plant as their protagonist. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, Terry, I had a question for you. Would you have shot that video? Would you have shot your videos any differently had it not been COVID? Like,
No.
So nothing about your process changed. Yeah.
No, I think that the inspiration for and the source of my decision making with the videos, it's based upon the audio, the music. And the filming definitely came after writing the songs and putting them together. So any of the synchronization that you see is timed rhythmically with the instruments and stuff. So I've done videos in the past that are kind of were put together in the same format. So I think the answer is no.
I was just curious.
But now that I've seen it, I want to redo the whole thing and do it completely differently.
So Kristen and I were just going back and forth in a little chat. The only other plant character in a musical that we could think of is Audrey in Little Shop of Horrors. Anybody else come up with any others? Lauren, do you know of any others?
No, and not where the plant I mean, not where the writer's taking plant sentience seriously and where the plant is the protagonist. I mean, to the extent I can both be respectful of the plantness of plants, yet accommodate the fact that I have to let them speak and sing because it's for a human audience. I mean, there were all kinds of issues like, right, what does it look like? And what about the different ways plants and humans experience time? You know, differences in scale, just a million questions. And also just taking seriously the fact that plants aren't like humans, right? And plants speak in a language beyond words, and that people that take this, that really have spiritual encounters with plants, um, I mean, I worry that the way I handle it might be considered in some way disrespectful. Um, and then, you know, so much of the sort of cosmology of it belongs to indigenous peoples, and so there's all these questions that are always in the back of my mind about, is it okay for me to be writing about this given the moment we're in? But I mean, ultimately, when I learned this stuff, it was so exciting to me to think that when I was taking a walk in Central Park, that I wasn't alone, that plants were somehow sentient, aware, benevolent presence. Um, and then honestly, later, when it does come to what's going on, you know, with the climate crisis, I mean, it's pretty clear there's not going to be one solution or one answer to any of this. And which makes me think it's going to be millions of people doing millions of small things that hopefully together will contribute to the possibility of turning things around. And, you know, I mean, the way Danny and I felt is if we could get people to walk out of the theater thinking, but they weren't really serious about plants being sentient, communicating, intelligent beings, were they? This isn't all true. And then somehow finding out that we totally are serious and meant it. Um, if if once you understand that, it hopefully makes it a lot harder to clear cut, you know, to lots of the things we do with respect to plants that are really bad. And you know, and I'd say the themes of the show are: one, all flourishing is mutual. I mean, the idea that humanity can flourish at the expense of everything else. We have clearly been in a giant experiment, right, showing that that's probably wrong. And there's a lyric toward the end where you know, so Mimosa's mom says you can't trust human, and Molly, the human's dad, says don't communicate, don't talk to plants. People will just think you're weird. And at the end, they both apologize and sing "Despair's an unbearable legacy. You deserve so much more from me." And that's kind of the other thing I feel, is that I just can't even imagine what it's like to be growing up and young now. And I don't want to write anything bleak. I want people to walk out of the theater thinking, here's something I can do just by changing the way I go through the world and see my relationship with everything else. I don't know. I might be rambling, but I'll stop because I probably am.
Lauren, I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
I think before I ask the question, I think I know how to deal with it on my end. For instance, basically what you're saying, I'm doing the same thing, like trying to write positive songs and be positive in my whatever I can contribute, which is mostly music.
Okay.
And in front of my living room window, I have a few boxwoods, and as we speak, there are robins hatching their little chicks. What do you think I can do when I see people cutting down trees, and it breaks my heart that that's happening around me?
I have no idea. I mean, I'm just reading, there's this woman, Suzanne Simard, who is really the one who did the original research that shows the way forests are interconnected. And she worked for the Forestry Service in Canada while they were clear cutting. I mean, that was part of her job, was to identify areas to clear cut and to facilitate that. And you know, part of her research involved cutting down trees in order to ultimately change the way we view these things. I don't know. And I I I don't know. I mean, you know how there's that thing in Judaism, you save one life, you save the world? Maybe that just needs to be our approach. You know, I have no answers. That's why I say if people can walk out of the theater thinking,
Right.
whoa, then maybe that's the best I can do.
That's the best solution I could find.
Right. It's like I have my granddaughters name my plants. Like, what's this one's name? What's her name? What's his name? Like, just think about the pronouns you use when you talk
Right.
about plants.
Hmm.
You know, they say instead of asking, what is this? It's who is this?
Exactly.
Right.
It's beautiful. And it's correct.
So I know this was our one event that had nothing to do with books, but listening to you both, I can't help but ask whether you've read The Overstory by Richard Powers, which is just an amazing book about trees communicating and so much more, but just really kind of apropos to the discussion, I think. Who else has questions for Lauren or Terry? And Lonnie, hi.
Hey, how are you? How's everybody?
Hi,
Terry,
Lonnie.
Lauren, hey,
Hello.
thanks for sharing your creations with us. I have questions for both. Well, first, Terry, so it sounds like, I mean, you were steeped in music even before you came to Princeton. So what did you major in at Princeton? Did you know that you were going to step off campus the day after graduation and immerse yourself in a music career? Did you have any, what did you feel about being surrounded by all of us, you know, pre-meds and pre-laws at the time? Did it lead to any doubts about music and say, oh, you know, I should be a doctor like my mom said? And then Lauren, I know yours was a mid-career change. Did you have any interest in music when you were at Princeton? Did you have any moments where you doubted your legal, you know, your path into the legal career and said, oh, I should be writing Broadway tunes?
Lauren.
No, Terry, I've been talking enough.
Oh, never enough. I could be here for many hours listening to you.
Oh,
It's a,
first, I refuse.
it's a treasure. As Catherine had mentioned, my brother Barry Miles Silverlight is in the class of '69, so that's 10 years. He's 10 years older than I am. When he was at Princeton, I would visit him, and it was just an amazing experience to see Freddie Fox driving on his bicycle around campus. And I was beginning to play drums at the time, so Barry hooked up some concerts at the Colonial Club, which he was a member of. And it was just an amazing experience for me to begin my performing career playing for the greatest audience in the world, which are my fellow Princetonians. So right off the bat, I had a love for the school. And that is why I applied. Actually, I applied to many schools thinking I would get into none of them. And I actually got into all of them. And Columbia was one of them. And it was a very difficult decision, believe it or not, after what I just told you, to decide whether to go there in Manhattan to begin a New York City freelance career or to go to Princeton. Of course, I did the right thing. And how could I pass up the best damn place of all and go to Princeton? I learned a tremendous amount from it that I've carried with me throughout my entire life. Basically, mainly the discipline and the excellence that I learned from my classmates and the curriculum and my professors. But after a year of being there, some people could do two things at once. They do the scholastic work at Princeton that it demanded, and also do the music thing full throttle. I wasn't able to do that, so I had to choose one or the other. So I got through that year with dignity and did very well. But I did not pursue drums or writing or any education beyond the music theory classes that I took at Princeton. And it started to begin to get to me. So I had to make one of the most difficult decisions of my life. And like you said, become a lawyer or a doctor, and all of this stuff is in the back of my head. So I took a leave of absence and I moved to Manhattan. And that's what I needed to do at that time, to take advantage of that opportunity to embark upon a career in music on the level that I wanted to achieve.
But then you came back. You came back to campus at some point?
I did not.
Ah. All right.
Here I am.
And here you are.
That's right. Lauren.
So it never occurred to me that I could be involved in musicals if I wasn't a performer. And I was not a performer. And I mean, no, it just never occurred to me. I loved musicals. Like, my chore was I had to do all the family ironing. And so I would like listen to musicals while I was doing it. And I would play the piano so my parents could sing, but mostly because it would drive my brother and sister crazy. No, it wasn't. I mean, I started writing when my kids were in middle school for a school fundraiser. I started writing like parody lyrics, and they begged. Well, I started writing. I mean, at that point, it was community theater. So, like, I was in it and directing and doing all that, but it was a lark. And again, my kids were humiliated by it, which encouraged me. And then I got tired of writing a G-rated show and went to a big social service organization that was doing these kinds of, like, the Capitol Steps kinds of things, and to raise money to give away. And there was some talent, and if you cast properly, you know, it could seem like the show was good. And I don't know. And then at some point there was a woman who was doing these shows with me who was 10 years younger and way more talented that I barely knew. And I wanted to get to know her better. So I asked her if she'd ever considered writing, you know, a full-length piece. And she said, no, why? And so anyway, so we wrote a full-length show sort of inspired by our experience in the social service organization. And in the course of writing that, I started taking musical theater writing class, and found that I loved it. And so I found a composer who was New York based and accomplished, who and wrote a musical called After They've Gone, about saying goodbye to your kids, which is what I was going through and all of us were going through. And I worked on it, you know, for like 2 years, and I thought I would never claim to be great, but it was definitely good enough to, you know, to sort of see the light of day. Well, that's when I did at our reunion, whatever the last one was. And I could not get anybody to take me seriously. And, you know, I loved what I was doing. And so I didn't know what to do. And the only thing I could do, since I wasn't a performer, was go to grad school, you know. So in 2015, I went to New York. I live in Chicago. I went to New York and left my husband and everybody else and was in school. And ever since then, I've been writing with the people I met in school, and I do have a different life. What was the question? How did this happen? Well, that's how it happened. No, it never occurred to me in Princeton. And no, I never really regretted being a lawyer, but I kind of don't believe in regretting anything. It seems like a waste of energy.
Thank you.
Yeah.